Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Okay, so just get to Adi Lila 11:42. Okay, this chapter is entitled The Expansions of Lord Nityananda. Actually, let's just check. Wait 1 second. Okay, so yes, 11:24. Sorry, not 42. Okay, so let's see. Kamalakara Pipale Alukika Rita Alukika Prema Tanra Bhuvane Vidita Kamalakara Pipale Alukika Rita Alukika Prema Tanra Bhuvane Vidita Kamalakara Pipalai Alukika Rita Alukika Prema Tanra Bhuvane Vidita
Kamalakara Tripalaya Alokika Rita Alokika Prema Tandra Bhuvane Vidita
Kamalakara Pipalai Alokika Rita Alokika Prema Tandra Bhuvana Vidita
Kamalakara Pipalai Alokika Rita Alokika Prema Tandra Bhuvane Vidita
Vaishnavis.
Kamalakara Pipalai Alokika Rita Alokika Prema Tandra Bhuvane Vidita
Kamalakara Pipalai Alokika Rita Alokika Prema Tantra Bhuvane Vidita
Kamalakara Pipalai Alokika Rita Alokik Prem Tar Bhuvane Vidita
Kalamakara Pipalai Kamalakara Pipalai Alokika Uncommon Rita Behavior or pastime Alokika Uncommon Prema Love of Godhead Tanra His Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, Kamalakara Pipalay is said to have been the third Gopal. His behavior and love of Godhead were uncommon, and thus he is celebrated all over the world. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhasya, in the Gauragadhantesh Dipika 128, Kamalakara Pipalay is described as the third Gopala. His former name was Mahabala. The Jagannath deity at Mahesh in Sri Rampura was installed by Kamalakara Pipalay. This village of Mahesh is situated about 2.5 miles from the Sri Ramapura railway station. The genealogy of the family of Kamalakara Pipalay is given as follows. Kamalakara Pipalay had a son named Chaturbuja, who had 2 sons named Narayana and Jagannath. Narayana had one son named Jagadananda, and his son's name was Rajivalochana. During the time of Rajivalochana, there was a scarcity of finances for the worship of the Jagannath deity, and it is said that the Nawab of Dhaka, whose name was Shah Suja, donated 1,185 bighas of land, about 395 acres in the Bengali year 1060 AD, 1653. The land being the possession of Jagannath, the village was named Jagannathpura. It is said that when Kamalakara Pipalay left home, his younger brother Nidipati Pipalay searched for him and in due course of time found him in the village of Mahesh. Nidipati Pipalay tried his best to bring his elder brother home, but he would not return. Under these circumstances, Nidipati Pipalay, with all his family members, came to Mahesh to reside. That means because the elder brother didn't come back, they came to where he was staying. The members of this family still reside in the vicinity of the Mahesh village. Their family name is Adhikari, and they are a Brahmana family. The history of the Jagannath temple in Mahesh is as follows. One devotee of the name Dhruvananda went to see Lord Jagannath, Balaram and Subhadra at Jagannath Puri, wanting to offer food to Jagannathji that he had cooked with his own hands. This being his desire, one night Jagannathji appeared to him in a dream and asked him to go to Mahesh on the bank of the Ganges, and there start worship of him in the temple. Thus Dhruvananda went to Mahesh, where he saw the 3 deities Jagannath, Balaram and Subhadra floating in the Ganges. He picked up all those deities and installed them in a small cottage, and with great satisfaction he executed the worship of Lord Jagannath. When he became old, he was very anxious to hand over the worship to the charge of someone reliable. And in a dream, he got permission from Jagannath Prabhu to hand it over to a person whom he would meet the next morning. The next morning, he met Kamalakara Pipalay, who was formerly an inhabitant of the village Kalijula in the Sundaravana forest area of Bengal, and was a pure Vaishnava, a great devotee of Lord Jagannath. Thus he immediately gave him charge of the worship. In this way, Kamalakara Pipalay became the worshipper of Lord Jagannath, and since then his family members have been designated as Adhikari, which means one who is empowered to worship the Lord. These Adhikaris belong to a respectable Brahmana family. 5 types of upper-class Brahmanas are recognized by the surname Pipalay. Okay. Omagyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so please repeat after me. Kamalakara Pipale is said to have been the third Gopala. His behavior and love of Godhead were uncommon, and thus he is celebrated all over the world. Okay. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be with all of you at Shri Radha Londonishvara Temple, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani, Shri Gaunitai, and famous temple. So we ask for your permission and blessings to speak something that will be pleasing to the Guru Parampara. So it's very interesting, this verse. Kamalakari Pipale is said to have been the third Gopala. So in the purple, Mahabala, great strength. So he is one of the Gopals, under the cowherd boys who associates with Krishna. And he said he has a darkish complexion also, like a monsoon cloud. And if I remember correctly, he goes with Krishna to the forest, say cowherd. This is interesting, this verse, because it says that his love of Godhead, his behavior were uncommon. It says, and thus he is celebrated all over the world. So it's very interesting here. There's a feedback that happens in the life of the devotees, that happens in every situation. And the feedback is really one of culture. What is culture? Culture is whatever you celebrate. Right? People's behavior gravitates towards whatever is recognized, whatever is celebrated. Sometimes we don't appreciate just how powerful this is, that we are so much products of the environment. So in this verse, very, very interesting standard that is being set here. The Gaudiya Vaishnava standard is to celebrate those things which elevate everyone. You see? Uncommon behavior and love of Godhead. Therefore, and thus he is celebrated all over the world. Now just take a moment to think about what kind of culture we would live in if in the entire world we were to celebrate the right thing. The modern world culture we live in is so dangerous because it celebrates all the wrong things. It literally celebrates the things which are literally degrading to human consciousness. So therefore, when one is trying to be spiritual, one is literally moving against the tide of modern society. And, just like this name, Mahabala, right, great strength, to do that, therefore, to move against the tide of Kali Yuga, it also requires this great strength. Where does that strength come from? The strength always comes from shelter. We as Vaishnavas, we're not going back to Godhead by our strength. We don't have strength. Kali Yuga, one of the things in Kali Yuga, it said that, everything degrades. Intelligence, lifespan, one thing after another, everything is degraded. There's only one thing that increases in Kali Yuga, and that is the false ego. That one thing gets bigger in Kali Yuga. So our job is not that we have the strength to go back to Godhead. We have the strength to take shelter of Krishna. And it is like the child who takes shelter of the parent, and the parent will carry that child all the way back. And as part of that journey, On that journey back home, back to Godhead, we will be faced with all the things which are in the heart that need to be let go of. So think of it like this. You're going up, you're ascending in a hot air balloon. But in order to go higher, you have to throw some weights out of the balloon. You understand how that works? If you don't, what happens is you can only go a certain height. Those weights are the anatas. As we go up on this journey, those anatas have to be jettisoned. I was listening to one class, and it was a Prabhupada disciple, and they were talking about that they were doing book distribution, so the library party. And it's a very interesting point that was made. They said that we were talking about this point that sometimes Maya will give people a temptation. And they were saying that because it was all brahmacharis, they were saying that there was this one brahmachari who literally 2-3 times a week, somehow or other, there will be some kind of temptation towards the opposite sex. Okay? And the rest of the group, they couldn't understand what is going on here. But then as they meditated on it, they actually could understand the reason why he keeps getting these temptations is because there's something about his internal desire that draws that situation to him. There was something going on in his consciousness that was saying, I'm open. And because of that, it was magnetizing certain situations. Our lives are so symbolic and so deep because our lives are framed by reality. What is that reality? The reality is everything is under the supreme jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetuna nendukuntaya jagat viparivartate. Right? Everything, moving and non-moving, is under his superintendence. And he also, yeyatamam prapadyante, tam sateva bhajamiyaham mama vatmanuvatate manusya pavasavashaha. He's reciprocal. And that's extremely significant. He's reciprocal. He's reciprocating with the desires of all living entities. So our life and our life environments, they're very distinct clues about the reality of what's going on inside us. Right? So we want to encourage each and every one of us, examine what goes on in your life because it can tell us so many amazing secrets about what's going on inside. I was trying to do some reflection in this regards. You know, in your life, you may have sometimes, whether they're devotees or non-devotees, people who have some enmity. Right? You ever had that situation in any chance? And that is a great opportunity to learn as well. Right? There's a great opportunity to learn. Every situation, it is pregnant with meaning, but the ability to unlock that meaning is held within the pages of the Shastra. These scriptures are like a means of encryption. If we understand what the scriptures are saying properly, then in any situation, we can try to unlock the learning. Right? Why am I faced with this particular situation? What does this situation teach me about myself? How would Krishna want me to respond to this situation? And the more that we can have that mood, that ability, rather than being triggered, rather than blaming the external situation, understanding my Supreme Lord, my all-affectionate Supreme Lord, he has allowed this situation to come upon me. These situations which are rich with meaning, rich with opportunities to grow, if I can pass the test. Now the question is, what does my dear Lord want me to learn from this situation? And if one has the humility to take that, because it does take humility. When there's pride, I just blame the object. I blame the messenger. When there's humility, I listen for the message. See? Very, very different dynamic. When there's humility, I listen for the message. Because whatever we experience in our lives as devotees is a fragment of what we are due to experience based upon our previous activities. It's not an easy thing to accept. It's not an easy thing to accept because we tend to think I'm good. I'm a good person. In fact, not only am I good, I'm a good devotee. Right? Did you see how many times I went to Mangalarti? You notice that? Right? We have that mood. We tend to think I'm a good devotee. So therefore, nothing should happen to us. We tend to think that the Krishna consciousness is an insurance policy. Right? You know, this idea happens, right? We've got no karma because we're devotees. Okay. Now, what we really mean is, Krishna, if there's good karma, don't worry, I'll take care of that. Right? But you can. I've got karma to be a millionaire. Don't worry, Krishna. I can handle that. That won't deviate me. But this other stuff, you should take that away. This is actually what goes on in the minds of devotees. But Krishna's not like that. He knows what's best for all of us. If we're honest with ourselves, we will find that in many situations and circumstances, we grow more from tests and challenges than we do when things are going nicely. Huh? And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he knows that very, very well. And therefore, different circumstances come. In this purport, apart from this first point about Bhaktisiddhanta, Guru Ganadesh Dipika explaining about how Kamalakara Pipalai, in his pastimes in Krishna Lila, is Mahabala, he then goes on to speak about the deity. This is very, very significant. Prabhupada also in the purport goes to speak about the genealogy of the family. The birth of a devotee is very, very significant. It is said that when a pure devotee takes birth in a particular environment, miles around, everyone is benedicted. We sometimes don't understand the significance of our own practice. There'll be times where our practice may become stronger. There'll be times where our practice may become weaker. But one of the things that we can really tune into to help us to be very fixed in our practice is to understand how many people are going to benefit from your own practice of Krishna consciousness. In scripture, in some places it says 100 generations. In some places it says 10 generations. In some places it says 14 generations benefit by your practice, depending on your advancement, Kanishta, etc., etc. So there'll be times where you may feel challenged. There'll be times where you may feel less enthusiastic in your devotional service. At those times, a great meditation can be that if we are able to remain serious and steady, so many relatives, so many people connected to us karmically also stand to benefit by that chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra that you do every day. By that service, not just service, Anya Bilasasya Shunyam, Jnana Kamada Navritama Nukulena Krishna Nushilana Bhakti-Uttama. The more pure the service actually is, the more that those personalities will benefit. The more, and this is, get this, it's not just when you pass away. You will sometimes see that those who are karmically connected to you, they undergo a change of heart while you practice Krishna consciousness in this lifetime. Without you even having so much direct preaching to them, etc. And that is also because we're so much more connected than we realize. So it is very, very important. It is very important to get the fuel for our devotional enthusiasm, utsahan. Where does that fuel come from? It comes from the association of the devotees. I was at this kirtan program on Friday. My godbrother was leading the kirtan, and he made a very wonderful point. He was asking the class, not class, it was a group of people who came for the kirtan. He was asking them a question. He said, what is more important? He said, the chanting or the association? Association is more important. And he went on to explain. He said, if you have good association, meaning spiritual association, you will chant. He said, but if you're chanting and you have bad association, you may find after a time that you will stop chanting. The association is so important. As Sachinanda Maharaj said, it is the roots of the roots. And this ISKCON community, it is a community. It is a community for sadhu sangha. But sadhu sangha is a real science. This pretty lakshanam, this is the real science. This ability to be nourished through loving association is a real science. In the purport here, towards the end, it talked about this term adhikari. And Prabhupada says here, let's find the exact place. Here it is. Since then, his family members have been designated as adhikari, which means one who is empowered to worship the Lord. This is a very, very beautiful principle. When we engage in devotional service to the devotees, It is by the blessings of the devotees that we become empowered to worship the Lord. Yeah. Sometimes you'll see devotees who are immature. So the spiritual master's there, they're serving the spiritual master seemingly very expertly. But to everyone else, they're kicking them out the way, pushing them out the way. Right? And it means kanishta adhikari. Respect for guru, respect for the deity, doesn't know how to deal with the devotees properly. Immature. But the idea is that actually we're meant to be this family, this movement, this mood. And this mood, it not only attracts, it not only has an attractive force, but it's able to hold people in the association of Vaishnavas. You'll see that over time, because the material energy becomes more and more intense, you'll see over time, we were explaining this at the manor last weekend, there'll be a premium on community. Real community, where people actually come, they are genuinely welcomed, they're genuinely accepted, and they're genuinely encouraged to grow. Right? And again, the modern world, because it's passion and ignorance, you'll see wherever there's passion and ignorance, there's always extremes, duality. But in spiritual life, there's always meant to be integration. So one extreme is we just let people be whatever they like. Right? They're coming in smoking, it's okay. No, we just need to accept them, Prabhu. We just need to understand where they're coming from, right? And then the other extreme is that, you just beat them up the moment they get into the door and tell them that, you better change or I'm going to mess you up, man, real bad. It's two extremes. Two extremes. There's a synthesis. Devotional life means synthesis. In fact, that is the nature of goodness and Shuddha-sattva. Everything is synthesized. What do we say? The pure devotee, as soft as a rose. We saw that with Prabhupada, incredibly soft-hearted, incredibly kind. Right? And we also know the other side. Prabhupada was also as hard as a thunderbolt, right? Very strict. It's written somewhere, staunch liberal devotee. That's what it means. Staunch liberal devotee. 100% strict with oneself, 90% tolerant with everyone else, but our example must raise the standard. You see? It is meant to be our example that raises the standard. In this purport, it's also mentioned about dreams, which is always an interesting subject matter, because here there were some dreams which took place, which gave some direction and guidance. So, for example, let's see. The history of the Jagannath temple in Mahesh is as follows. One devotee of the name Dhruvananda went to see Lord Jagannath, Balaram and Subhadra at Jagannath Puri, wanting to offer food to Jagannath Ji that he cooked with his own hands. And then this being his desire, this is really instructive. Just listen to what Prabhupada says and we can unpack it. This being his desire, one night Jagannath Ji appeared to him in a dream. So did you catch that there was a mood before the revelation? Right? This ability to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness, this ability to have reciprocation in Krishna consciousness, it's precipitated. It comes because someone has a very sincere what? Desire. Prabhupada was about to enter into a vehicle, and one of his disciples was chasing after him, and they were asking Prabhupada, what is the secret of success in Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada had to go, because when someone's realized, they understand things so well, that when you ask the question, they can just give you the essential point. Prabhupada said it in one word. He said desire. What we are trying to cultivate in the association of devotees is a genuine hunger for devotion. We were explaining so in Rupa Goswami's literature, Prabhupada will quote it again and again. There are 9 stages of devotional service, right? Shraddha, and then after Shraddha comes Sadhu Sangha. From Sadhu Sangha, one engages in Bhajana Kriya, devotional practice. From Bhajana Kriya, one comes to Anartha Nivriti, because engaging that devotional practice is cleansing the heart. And through Anartha Nivriti, as the Anarthas are coming up, one comes to the stage of Nishtha, right? Steadiness. So that steadiness, from that steadiness, one comes to the stage of Ruchi. At Ruchi, there's a taste for the practices, a real taste. From Ruchi, one comes to Ashakti. Ashakti, there's an attachment to the Lord. From Ashakti, one comes to Bhava, okay? Ecstatic emotions. Preliminary stage before love of Godhead, full-blown love of Godhead. Then one comes to Prema. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says there are 14 stages. Okay? Satam Kripa Mahat Seva Shraddha Guru Padashraya. He says the first stage is Satam Kripa. He says, first of all, you get the mercy of a devotee. Satam Kripa. Right? And then Mahat Seva. And having received the mercy of that devotee, you then render some kind of service. In some way, shape, or form, you reciprocate. Satam Kripa Mahat Seva, then Shraddha. That then brings one to the stage of Shraddha. Satam Kripa Mahat Seva, Shraddha, Guru Padashraya. And having developed that Shraddha, faith and devotional service, one then takes shelter at the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. And then from there it says Bhajaneshu Spriha. Then you engage in bhajan. Bhajana Kriya, that's what it means. Regulated devotional service under guidance of authority. Bhajana Kriya. And then he says it leads to Spriha. Spriha means a longing for devotional service. Right? Spriha. Same point here. This personality, Dhruvananda, look at the words which he used. He wanted to offer food to Jagannath that he had cooked with his own hands. You see how intimate. I want to do something for the Lord. It's I want to render some intimate service. Right? And this desire then leads to this reciprocation from the Lord. So what we're trying to do every single day is intensify our desire. Because when the desire becomes intensified, the reciprocation also becomes intensified. This is the clue that's being given here. And what kills the desires, what kills the intense spiritual desires that will cause this reciprocation from the Lord, is material desires. So this fire of devotional service, can be put out by the water of material life. This is what we're trying to avoid. Sometimes devotees go through a crisis. What is the crisis that they go through? Sometimes devotees go through a crisis because they've been practicing for such a long time. And they think, nothing's happening. I've been practicing for so long, Prabhu. What's going on? Does this process really work? I don't even have any mystic abilities, right? I can't read people's minds. Like, come on, something, right? Some cities or some, please, right? But it's not like that. We can be in the university, but what did you go to the classes, right? We can be in the university. Did you study in the university? I remember when I was at university, people just hung out, right? Didn't go to many of the classes, and then they'll just try to stay up all night before the exam. You can't do that in Krishna consciousness, right? It doesn't work like that. So you're in the building, but how much do we apply ourselves? Now, there's a very interesting clue there. There's some of the students, I saw this also. Sometimes when you're studying, there's some students you can see they're really serious, isn't it? Right? They come early to class. They spend some extra time speaking to the teacher. They're in the library revising. If you actually pay attention, you can see this student's very, very serious. And you can then ask the student, why don't we study together? When you're in the library, I'll be there around that time. Maybe you can, we can exchange notes or whatever it is. This Krishna consciousness is a family. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on the planet, then the question was no longer, how can I go back to Godhead? When Nama Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Husumedashaha, right? Sankirtana, Nama Sankirtana Praya. San means all. Sankirtan, two things. All of us together and all aspects of the world offered to the Lord in Kirtan in service. Nama Sankirtana Praya Yanti Hisumedashaha. So when Lord Chaitanya appeared on the earth, the message was very, very clear. It's not how can I go back to Godhead, it's how can we go back to Godhead. So when we associate with each other in the mood of empowering each other, just think about what that would mean for your spiritual life, what that would mean for the community, and just how powerful that is, how inspiring that is, how nourishing that is. When I was looking at this verse, it was very interesting because there was a point it talked about a lack of resources. Here it is. During the time of Rajiva Lochana, there was a scarcity of finances for the worship of the Jagannath deity. It's always interesting in the minds of some devotees. They will sometimes think, if Krishna is God, then why are the devotees struggling? If Krishna is God, then, why aren't we all millionaires, Prabhu? Like that. We're doing God's service. It's not quite like that. The abundance that a devotee experiences is of a much more significant quality. If we engage in devotional service properly, the first type of abundance, which, by the way, is actually the only abundance, is the fulfillment within. Right? And the reason why I say it's the only abundance is because, think about it. If you're depressed and you're a millionaire, what good is your money? What good is your money? It means nothing. It's not the external thing. It's actually the internal thing that makes all the difference. And the reason why people run after the externals is because they're confused. People are confused. They think, if I get these external things, I will suddenly be completely satisfied. There was one study. David Marita Maharaj was explaining about this in a class. They did a study of children of millionaires, right? And guess what they found? Those children were always dissatisfied. And they interviewed them. And they would say things like, I can't show my face in public. Dad's only worth 10 million. The next door neighbor, their parents are worth 30 million. I just feel awkward. Right? I can't do anything, I feel ashamed when I move around in social circles. And it's like that. And we know it's like that because we've seen this in our own experience, right? We call it keeping up with the Joneses, or the Patels. You understand the point? Whatever it is, because it's comparative analysis. Whatever you have, it's never enough, because what you'll notice is the mind plays a trick on us. Whatever you have, before you were comparing yourself to one group of people, now you have more, you compare yourself to whoever's got more than you. And we think it's because I don't have these things. No, it's because of the way that your mind is. And therefore, Krishna's constantly telling Arjuna, this mind, you have to make it your friend. The mind has to become the friend. Otherwise, no matter where you are, always comparing to someone else. Very interesting point. You can think about this as the Indra complex. Right? You think, king of the demigods, Indra. No. Whenever he sees some human being performing some kind of sacrifice who may have sufficient qualification to take his position, now he becomes insecure. We've got to find a way to sabotage this particular person, because if we don't sabotage them, my position may be threatened. My prestige may be threatened. Now think about what Krishna consciousness can give us. If we choose to practice it properly, think about what Krishna consciousness can give us. You can genuinely be happy for everyone else's advancement. Think about it. No more being threatened. Oh, this person did more than me. How does that make me look? I feel so inferior. No more. We've had this for so many lifetimes. So many lifetimes. We think it's because of the situation and circumstance. It's because of us. We can let it go in this lifetime. Think about how strong you would be as a person. Think about how, and this is the irony. If someone has that mentality, right? I'm genuinely happy for the advancement of other people. What do you think Krishna will give you in terms of your own advancement? Can you imagine? Right? There'll be absolutely no scarcity of deep spiritual satisfaction. What is that verse? Krishna says the devotees are experiencing great bliss and satisfaction from enlivening one another about me. Tusyanti cha ramanti cha. Yeah. Yes. Machita matkata prana bodhayanta paraspam kathayantas cha mam nityam tusyanti cha ramanti cha. It is Krishna's own statement. His devotees experiencing great bliss and satisfaction from enlivening one another about me. Same point. In the association of devotees, that enlivenment, that richness, that fulfillment, that is the only real standard of wealth. And we have to remember that, because the world is saturated with these lower modes. We were speaking about this recently. The trouble with the lower modes is that they're so deceptive. So, and of the three modes, the most deceptive is the mode of passion. We explained the mode of ignorance is as bad as it looks. It just looks bad, unclean, dirty, inertia. One thing. The mode of goodness is better than it looks, actually, right? Not that we want the mode of goodness, we want transcendence. But comparatively, the mode of goodness is better than it looks. But the mode of passion is the most deceptive. Why? Because the mode of passion looks better than it actually is. So in the mode of passion, it's so much about the packaging. So much about what happens on the surface. And therefore we become numb. But they seem happy. They seem to have it all. The trouble with the mode of passion, and this is why life is so dangerous in this material world, is that the effects of the mode of passion come over a certain time period. Right? I was speaking to one devotee recently about some others that we know. And they engaged in a certain behavior, which in the beginning, it was passionate. In the beginning, it seemed like they were getting away with it. And then just later on down the line, you could see that it just led to so many challenges in their life. So many challenges. And I was thinking, it's exactly what Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita. Happiness in the mode of passion begins like nectar and it ends like poison. And this is why it's so deceptive. Because you don't see the full reactions of that behavior immediately. So what tends to happen in the material world is everyone thinks I'm getting away with it. Right? Everyone thinks I'm getting away with it. And Krishna's like, dude, read Bhagavad Gita. No one gets away with it. Right? The motto of the mode of passion is buy now, but you will pay later. Right? That's the motto of the mode of passion. Buy now if you want to, but you will definitely have to pay later, plus interest. Right? So the beauty of this Krishna consciousness teaching is it is so deep and so profound. It is, I repeat, it is so deep and so extraordinarily profound that we cannot even begin to fathom what we've been given. Our job is to unpack the gift. Our job, and this is what we're doing every day, when you're chanting, especially sincerely, you're unpacking the gift. When we serve the devotees sincerely, we're unpacking the gift. When we serve the beautiful forms of Radha Landaneshvara, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra Maharani, sincerely, we are unpacking the gift. Who is Jagannath? Krishna in ecstasy. Hearing about his own pastimes in Vrindavan, he goes into ecstasy. Not only does he go into ecstasy, his brother Balaram goes into ecstasy. Subhadra, she goes into ecstasy. While they're hearing Krishna Lila, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. This ecstasy is a very deep currency, because the living entity cannot exist without happiness. This is a warning also. This is the warning of community. The devotees, we cannot exist without some kind of happiness. So if you find that you don't get it in the community of devotees, what will happen is one will feel forced to try to go for it elsewhere. So what we have in Krishna consciousness is our early warning system. This enthusiasm for devotion, this sincere service in the association of devotees. And also, one other thing is, to do that, you have to be incredibly realistic. You know? We've had people who leave the movement and leave communities and they'll have some issues about the devotees. My respectful counter is that no, you had issues with reality. Because you cannot expect that every devotee is a Mahabhagava. You cannot expect that every devotee is going to act properly at every moment. There's a very interesting, I had a shift in my spiritual life. We'll open up for questions in a moment. I had a shift in my spiritual life when I read, when I heard a seminar on the Harinam Chintamani. And in that seminar on the Harinam Chintamani, the Prabhupada disciple who was speaking, he made a very interesting point which completely shifted my focus of the devotees and my focus when I was reading the books. He said, and you can check this for yourself. This is, because I always like to check things. You can check this for yourself. He said in the class, he said, when Prabhupada writes about devotees, he said, if you look carefully at Prabhupada's writings, which unfortunately many of us don't do, which is a real problem. He said, if you study Prabhupada's books carefully, you'll see that when Prabhupada writes about devotees, he usually speaks about pure devotees. There's a pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya I think he visits the residence of Kulinagram. I think that's the name of the place. And one time when he comes, they ask him who's a devotee. Does anyone know this pastime? Yeah. And the first time they ask him who's a devotee, he says someone who chants the holy name of the Lord even once is a devotee. But he goes again to the same place, the residence of Kulinagram. Second time he asks, he says, who's a devotee? Do you know what they say? Anyone remember? He says, one who's constantly chanting the names of the Lord is a devotee. He goes again to the residence of Kulinagram and he says, who's a devotee? And he says, one whose appearance, who's just by their appearance causes everyone to chant. Now, it is explained that when he goes to the same place, he's asked the same question 3 times, he gives 3 different answers. Why? Because the first time he's speaking about the Kanishta Adhikari. The second time he goes and he's asked who's a devotee, he says one who's constantly chanting, that's the standard of a Madhyam Adhikari. The third time he goes and the answer is one whose presence causes others to chant, that's an Uttama Adhikari. So again, going back to the same point, when Prabhupada writes about devotees, often he's speaking about pure devotees. And if you start to study, you find it all fits together. Why? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says one who chants Nama Bas, he's Vaishnava Bas. He says only one who chants Shuddhanam is a Vaishnava. So what happens in some places, a very liberal definition of devotees are given to encourage and inspire everyone. And in other places, a very technical definition of devotee is given, meaning one who has pure, unadulterated love of Godhead. So now, when we go to the scripture and we don't understand that when that statement devotee is made, it can refer to different levels. Then we start thinking, well, it says a devotee is like this. So then we think that new bhakta, come on, what's wrong with you, Prabhu? Why aren't you like this? Prabhupada said the devotee is like this, but you're not, come on, We start thinking that because we don't understand what level of devotee is Prabhupada writing about. You understand the difference? So that shift took place. And then I understood, I thought I was a devotee. No, I'm a sadhaka. And Prabhupada will sometimes bring that out very technically. He will say practicing devotion. Right? Or he'll say nectar of instruction. He says the prakrita bhakta. Isn't that interesting as a term? Because we say the bhakta is devotee, but prakrita means materialistic. Right? I'm sure many of you read that. Prakrita bhakta, a materialistic devotee. Isn't that interesting, right? And in another place, I think it's in first canto Bhagavatam, I think it's there. Prabhupada says that Kanishta Adhikari is on the threshold of devotion. So what we have been given an opportunity to do is to fine-tune our expectations. So again, when people leave, it was the devotees. No, respectfully, I think it was our wrong expectation. Because we didn't actually understand what we were being told in the pages of this literature and what the standards are of different devotees, what to expect. If this recalibration goes on, then you have no problem being in association with devotees. Okay, this person's a Kanishta. I'm a Kanishta also. No problem. Let's encourage each other. This person's a Madhyam. They differentiate. Wonderful, wonderful. Let me try and see how I can interact with them. We can make friendship. This person is an Uttama. No problem. They're an Uttama. Let me take guidance. Let me inquire from the person. Right? And if they're a proper Uttama, they'll be compassionate. Right? If they're a proper Madhyam, there'll be friendship. Right? So community, there's a real need to understand how to relate properly in the association of devotees. There's a real need to understand that, to understand the science of spiritual reciprocation. And if we understand how to relate to the junior, how to relate to the peer, how to relate to the senior properly, with love, it's always with love and affection, then we can guarantee that you'll get the blessings of the devotees. There's a real science to empowerment. There's a real science to empowerment. And that science to empowerment is locked up in the heart of every single devotee. When you please the devotees through sincere service, right? And by the way, sincere service is you do what Krishna wants you to do in relation to that devotee. Right? If that devotee starts to gossip or be, harsh or rude to other devotees, not like, but I should serve them, so maybe I should just go along with this. No. We serve them according to Krishna's statements. This is how you serve my devotee. Because Krishna's always in the picture. But if we associate with devotees like that, there'll be so much nectar in our spiritual life because your faith... See, all these stages from Shraddha to Prema, what are they? They are intensifications of Shraddha. So there's some Shraddha, and then when there's more Shraddha, you have enough Shraddha to actually associate with devotees, then it's called Sadhu Sangha. When there's even more faith, then you have enough Shraddha, not only to associate with the sadhus, but to also do what they tell you, which is what? They'll tell you to engage in practice. What do we tell people to do when they first come? We say, right, have you tried the chanting? You know, it's really, really good for you. You'll get something from it. Here's some beads, you know, Hare Krishna. And that's it. So that gets to Bhajana Kriya. And of course, it gets to the point that they do what? They have enough faith to take initiation. Right? And then when they have more faith, you need faith to get through Anatta Nivriti. Anatta Nivriti requires faith because you're going to see all the things come up in the heart that you thought you didn't have. It's easy when we come to the movement, we think, you know, I'm going to hit Prema in about maybe 10, 15 minutes. Right? Just enough time for lunch, maybe some Mahaprasadam before we go back home back to Godhead. And then you find out it's not quite like that, you know. To keep going requires faith. It is explained in Shastra that faith gives what? It gives virya and smriti. Virya means drive and determination. Smriti means the ability to hold the teachings of the Shastra within one's consciousness. So when we serve properly, Krishna, just like in this purple, there's so much reciprocation from the Lord. And I know you experience it. I know that though you go on book distribution, Krishna arranges something. You think, wow, there's some synchronization. Or you just needed to hear something in the class. Oh, wow, I went to that class and that answered my question. Right? Or there was something that you needed for your devotional service, and the devotee just comes up to you and says, Prabhu, I was just thinking about you. Would you like this? And you think, wow, Krishna reciprocated. And these moments are extremely, extremely beautiful because what is Krishna doing? He's giving. He wants you to know, I'm there. I love you. I care about you. I know I've got you. Right? This is the beauty of this Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is a love affair. It's a very intimate love affair between you and the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the residents of the spiritual world as well. So if we associate properly, if we try... Kali Yuga is such a bad place. Krishna knows that we struggle. He knows. What does he want? All he wants to see is that you tried your best. Right? He knows. He knows in Kali Yuga, he even knows that people don't even like authority in Kali Yuga, right? You can ask all the temple presidents. People don't like authority in Kali Yuga. Krishna knows that. He's very aware of that. But what does he want? He just wants you to try your best. He wants to see that you tried, that you did the very best you could, and he will pick us up. Kripa Siddha. So we're very, very fortunate in Kali Yuga to have any opportunity at all. We're very fortunate in Kali Yuga to even know about this. You received some Satam Kripa. In this life or in a previous life, you got the blessings of the devotees, which is why we are here. We got the blessings of the devotees, which is why we are here. And now by the blessings of the devotees, which is what comes through us sincerely serving them, that is what will allow us to stay here and to go there. Back home, back to Godhead. Okay, so we'll stop there. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jani Tagore Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Okay, any questions? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions, comments? I saw Bruce hand. Is there a microphone to go around or how? Please.
It's under repair.
Oh, okay.
You have to use your voice as loud as possible.
Oh, I can, yeah, we can.
Hare Krishna, Bhuta Bhavana. Thank you for another really profound class. I was just reflecting on this point you were saying about the reciprocation and progression and kind of removing the weights from the hot air balloon. And I was just, I had a couple questions about why is it so often that we get stuck in certain places and have to spend time on those places before we can see some kind of reciprocation from the weight being like lifted off the heart. And then I was also wondering about, is it that Krishna reciprocates with us in different ways to give like certain things, and like what are the different types of reciprocation we can look out for as well?
Thank you. So the first one you asked about why does it sometimes we get at a certain level, it takes so long to move forward. There's a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that, you see, there's a certain, practically I think all devotees or most devotees will experience this. When you come to Krishna consciousness, there's a certain exhilaration. I found it, Wow, there's devotees, they're chanting ecstatically, I chant, I'm feeling really blissful, the deities are there, wow, Prashant, I'm so good, whatever. So you feel that, And, when we experience that, which is real, we sometimes get a free sample from Krishna. We sometimes get a lot of free samples from Krishna. And so that can also make us think that we're more advanced than we actually are. And Krishna's like, all right, sometimes they do this in, like, business people or salespeople will do this, and I know the devotees definitely do this. Where are you from? Yeah, I've got, I used to be there. We've got these books. Have a look. Yeah, look through it. You think, and you got the book in your hand. You feel like this book's mine. And then they take it back for you and ask you for money. It's like, wow, like that. So sometimes Krishna gives you something, and you think, that's me, right? I'm an ecstatic bhakta, and you are an ecstatic bhakta. But you're gonna have to do the work to stay ecstatic. Right? So sometimes we get a free sample, and it's wonderful and it's real because Krishna's showing you this is available for you. Right? We're going to give you something now, right? Go away, take a look at it, get a feel for it, but we're going to ask you to eventually make sure that you do the work so you can hold on to this always, right? You give the person a book, have a flick through. Look, there's a picture here. We talk about yoga, different types of yoga systems. Here's some. This is the author. And you're already feeling that this is mine. It's mine. I've got the book in my hand. Yeah, it feels like possessive. Like that. Then they take the book back and say, right, how much money you got in your wallet? Sorry, wallet. How much money have you got? This is. Everyone's giving a donation. Give what you can. Oh, you got 50, like that. So we have to also understand that there's something to work for. Now, the other reason's a bit more esoteric. The other reason why we sometimes reach a plateau and have to work through is because sometimes we've come back to the stage that we came to in the previous life. Yeah. So you got to the stage where you got to in the previous life, and now to go further, you got to do more work. So it was relatively easy to get back because you're retracing your steps. But to go beyond that point, it requires two things, actually. Sincere desire, which will make us put the effort in, and sincere association. So we were in Vrindavan. We were in Vrindavan because we go most years, like at the end of the year, for like a retreat. We're in Vrindavan, and we spent some time with Bhuta Prabhu and Mother Jagatarini, Prabhupada disciples. Very wonderful, there. And you remember this. So there was a seminar that was being given by Bhuta and Mother Jagatarini. They were giving a class. And Mother Jagatarini said something very interesting. And it really it stayed in my mind because I remember my spiritual master saying something similar. She said, obviously being in the female body, it's not that she can just hang around with the sannyasis or anything like that. But she said that whenever there are advanced devotees present, she says, I always try and find some way to be around their energy. She actually used that word, to be in or around their energy. And it got me thinking, just how much more subtle the exchanges that's going on. And my spiritual master said something, said, when you're around very pure devotees, there's also the aura contact, because what they are carrying in their consciousness, it spills over. Now, where is that written? Nectar of Devotion talks about this. In Nectar of Devotion, for example, it talks about shadow ecstasy. So it says that you can be in the association of a very advanced devotee, and some of the ecstasy that they're experiencing spills over into your experience. One devotee told me about one Prabhupada disciple in Vrindavan So one devotee was saying to me, because he knows someone who was serving this Prabhupada disciple who's very advanced. So this Prabhupada disciple was in Vrindavan, and the devotee was assisting him, and that Prabhupada disciple there was some exchange between that Prabhupada disciple and the deities. And the devotee who was assisting him, he saw the exchange. He saw the exchange, right? And he understood that the deities are exchanging with that devotee. They're not exchanging with me, but because I'm in proximity, I saw something of what they were experiencing. So it's like that. So to move through that, one thing is that we get a free sample. Second is that we sometimes retrace our steps, but now to go beyond where we got to last time, it's a bit more work, like that. But through, again, enthusiastic desire, which leads to service, putting the effort in, and through good association, we can be raised very, very strongly. So again, it's to do with the quality of our association and the nature of how we associate with those personalities. And for that to work, the rule is deal with every single devotee as if the success or failure of our spiritual life depended on how I'm dealing with that person. I say that because if you think back to it, when Prabhupada was on the planet, before he became A.C. Bhaktivedanta Sannyas, went to the Western world, there were many of his godbrothers, they didn't think he was going to be the person to spread Bhaktisiddhanta's teachings and Krishna's teachings all over the Western world. They thought, he's okay. He's okay. He's a householder, a little bit, attached. He's okay. Businessman, he's okay. They didn't understand who he was. So we should not make that mistake. We should understand every single devotee is very special. I was listening to this class, and there's a point that I'll just make here because I think it's relevant. You see, it's not about what someone's doing necessarily externally. It's actually about how much people want to be Krishna conscious. Because in order to make it all the way back home, back to Godhead, you have to actually take shelter of Krishna more and more. And what happens is, you may be a devotee, you may even have struggles, but if you sincerely want Krishna, what will happen is he'll keep protecting you from the material energy. Even if you go through difficulties, there are challenges, so many things, he'll keep protecting you because your internal desire is, Krishna, I really want to, Krishna, I'm weak. Krishna, I've got these challenges. Krishna, I have these struggles. Krishna, I have these temptations, but I really do want to go back to God. I really do want to love you. If you have that, then even beyond all these other things, because there'll be other desires in the heart until we're pure, but he'll pick that up. They want me. And he'll keep making arrangements to protect you. But the opposite's also true. If you're a big devotee, I've done this, I've done that, but you don't really want Krishna, then at some point, your own internal narrative is, Krishna consciousness is okay, but this is more interesting, or this is better. And Krishna will see that, and he'll be like, oh, Savasyacha Hamridishanivishto Mata Smriti Jnanamapohanam Cha. He's the one who gives knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Isn't that interesting? Forgetfulness. So he doesn't want us to forget him. But if we insist, Krishna, it's okay. I'm a big boy now. I'll be okay. If we insist like that, it's like, dude, really? Like, look at how much people are suffering in this material world. You're crazy. But if they insist, then there's a different reciprocation. Anyway, I hope I answered your question like that. Thank you. I saw a hand at the back. If we could pass the microphone. And then you can tell me where to stop.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. You spoke about mode of passion being deceptive. And that's the problem, right? Like when you talk about, if you're normally, that, before coming to Krishna consciousness, being jealous of someone else is wrong, right? The thing. Yeah, no, I mean, like someone is having so much money. The issue, like you said, is that it's deceptive in the sense you see some devotee, let's say, who is very well-to-do, extremely rich, and is serving the devotees well. So the mind tricks you to say that, you work hard, you do more, try to get as rich as a devotee so that you can serve as well as a devotee. The thing is, there are all kinds of devotees across, like very well-to-do devotees or like normal struggling devotees, everybody who is serving in different ways. But the mind tricks you to say that, like, you see that devotee is extremely well-to-do, you try to get to that stage and serve devotees like that. Try to serve more, give more donation. You can do a lot more. So try to work hard. So how do you understand that situation? How do we get out of that?
Okay, so there's a good question. See, first of all, we all have different attachments. And also we have different adhikar, means qualification. There's a letter by Prabhupada said it's a question of who can catch the big fish without getting wet. So if it's your service, for example, if it's sanctioned, someone wants to raise resources or funds for Krishna. If someone has that service, they can do it without losing their spiritual consciousness, it's sanctioned by their spiritual master, it can be okay. But the thing to bear in mind is this: the means has to include some of the ends. So what tends to happen is someone will say, I'm going to be rich for Krishna. And you have to, and then the skeptic in me thinks, are you rich for Krishna or are you rich for yourself? Right? Like that. That's the first point. But people have attachments. If they're going to engage that attachment, that can still be okay. But the point about the means has to include some of the ends. It means this particularly. Whatever we're so-called doing for Krishna, you have to be giving it to him as you're going along. You see, sometimes a devotee will think, I'm going to become a millionaire, and when I become a millionaire, we'll give it all to Krishna, because I'm just doing it for Krishna. And what you find is, they become a millionaire, and maybe £5 goes to the temple. And you're thinking, what happened there? Like that. Yeah, it's like, you think, I thought this was all for Krishna. So what should happen is, while they're making that Lakshmi, they should be giving the Lakshmi. Because otherwise, they'll become attached to it. And you see, what happens is also there's a subtlety to this. You see, if you tell Krishna, I'm going to do this for you, he may actually think, okay, you're serious, you really want to serve. He may empower you to get that particular thing for him. But then if we start claiming the credit, right, and saying, it's my money, it's my millions, then Krishna's like, well, if you want to take the credit, you have to also take the karma. Which goes back to your point also. The reason why some devotees get stuck is because they were doing really, really well up until a certain point in their spiritual life. And then they became proud. Right? Krishna can empower us. There's a story that Prabhupada tells. Puna Mushiko Bhava. He tells there's a story of, I think it's a mouse who's being harassed by the cat. The mouse goes to a mystic. I'm being harassed. The mystic transforms the mouse into a cat. Now the cat leaves it alone. Then that cat's being harassed by a dog. Goes back to the mystic. The mystic transforms the cat into a dog. The dog leaves it alone. The dog's being harassed by a lion. The dog goes to the mystic. The mystic transforms the dog into a lion. The lion leaves it alone. But then now you have this lion. He used to be a mouse, now he's a lion. So then he looks at the mystic and says, now I'm a lion, I'm going to eat you. And the mystic therefore says, therefore, Puna Mushiko Bhava. Once again you become a mouse. And the meaning behind that is, by Krishna's empowerment, he can give us all kinds of opulences, because he has all the opulences. Wealth, strength, fame, knowledge, beauty, renunciation, he has all the opulences. But if we start taking credit for it and thinking it's us, rather than understanding it's Krishna's opulence, then Krishna says, if you're going to claim it as yours, you have to deal with all the karma that comes along with that. And it's just like you're trying to swim, you're trying to come up for air. You're under the water, you're trying to come up for air. And you're doing really well. You're about to break through to the surface and come up for air. But then somehow you've decided to attach an anvil like a weight around your ankles. So you were coming up, you were doing so well, but now you're going down again. Right? So what has to happen is, it has to truly be done for Krishna. And therefore, the way to do it is to make sure that the means include some of the ends. While I'm getting this Lakshmi, I'm giving it. I'm not saying I'm going to keep it all and then I'll give it when I get 1 million. No, give something now, because you're trying to develop the habit of service. In other words, as we progress in spiritual life, we actually have to become more and more humble. It's not the humility you had when you first came in is not going to be enough to take you back home, back to Godhead. No way. No way. When someone comes in, they're a new bhakta, just fired up, but then they get first initiation. So now all the new devotees are like, wow, you got a spiritual name. Oh, wow, Prabhu, who's your spiritual master? Like that. And you're thinking, I've got a spiritual master. Hey, like that. And so you have to have a bit more humility. And then you get second initiation. They see you on the altar. Wow. He's serving Radha Londoneshvara directly. He's touching the deity. More respect, more influence. You have to become even more humble. Then one gets a position or a sannyas guru, whatever it is. As you get more, one has to also become more humble in order to balance that. You know? Again, otherwise it becomes problematic. So that's also another reason why I think people can stagnate, because they've reached a certain level of humility, but they're not developing more humility. So to your point, we may have a service that we can do. We can try different things, but Krishna's so kind that if he feels that something's not good for someone and they're sincere, he won't give it to them anyway. Yeah, to answer your question. Thank you. Okay. Do I have time for one more? Should we stop? Okay. We can pass the mic to the person at the back, and then
Yeah.
And if there's any question, I'll give the mic.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. Thank you, Prabhupada, for bringing such a nice messenger. Prabhuji, I wanted to ask you about anartha nivriti. And at all stages of our spiritual development, does anartha nivriti exist? Or is it only at one particular point?
Thank you. No. What we call anartha nivriti is a stage where there's a major emphasis on removing the anarthas. After anartha nivriti, one comes to this platform of nishta, and at nishta, the vast majority of the anarthas are gone. Yeah, that's explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Madhurya Kadambini, like that. He explains it there. But there's still more cleansing that takes place even beyond anartha nivriti. There's a pastime of a personality named Rupa Kaviraj. He was at Bhava Bhakti. He was experiencing the preliminary stages of love of Godhead, but he actually made an offense to a lady named Krishna Priya Thakurani. And because he made an offense to her, then he actually fell down from his platform. We also see Bharat Maharaj. He was also at Bhava Bhakti, but then he became attached to a deer. So there was still something like that. So anartha nivriti is a major stage of cleansing of anarthas, but they continue to be cleansed even up until the stage of prema.
And it is also a very serious stage that actually can, a bhakta that is aspiring to become a devotee, it could be too challenging.
It generally is challenging. It generally is challenging. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
So how do we maintain? How do we have resilience so that we can go forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. Do you remember the 5 carriers that bring one to nishta? Do you remember that? The 5 tadiyas.
Yeah.
You just pass them because there are 5 specific things which are considered to be carriers, and they're imbued with a certain potency by Krishna, which makes them more powerful. He's imbued them with a potency that makes them more powerful than himself, than Krishna is himself. But in relation to carrying one to the platform of nishta. So there's 5. We were discussing it the other day, but I'll just pass the microphone because I don't remember what they are. You just pass the microphone to
I just need to look up. It's really big.
Okay. Yeah, so one of them is Tulsi. Yeah, you can get the reference. So if you have the reference.
Oh yeah, so I've got so Tadiya means things which are related to Krishna. This is a class on 1-2-17 by His Holiness Sachinanda Swami Maharaj. He says that in this verse 1-2-17, there are 2 types of Tadiya mentioned, the Bhagavatam and the pure devotee. But there are other Tadiyas. In one of the Puranas it is said that there are 5 powerful boats which can carry the conditioned souls over the ocean of birth and death. That is number 1, Shrimati, worship of Shrimati Tulsi Devi. 2 is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. 3 is serving the pure devotee. 4, the holy name. And 5, Mother Ganga. So these 5 things are more potent in relieving us from the material illusions than Krishna himself. Why? Because Krishna has invested these 5 transcendental boats with a certain carrying potency, which can carry us from the side of Anishta Bhakti, where we practice unsaid devotional service, to the side of Nishta Bhakti.
Thank you very much. You can just put the microphone back. So that was those 5 tadiyas.
So the only place where it's safe is when we get friends.
Yes, you could say that, but the emphasis isn't on being concerned about that. The emphasis is on just taking shelter. See,
You mentioned that.
yeah, because the point is that it's Krishna who's going to deliver us. The anxiety will come if I think it's by my own strength that I'm going to do it. But the anxiety will go away if I understand I'm in a sincere relationship with the all-powerful Krishna. If I'm sincere, I can trust that he will take care of me. There's no issue. There's no question that he will let us down, as long as we want to go back. Yeah, like that. Thank you. I saw a question on this side, and if you can pass the microphone. Yeah, here first, and then
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. Can you say more on what you said earlier, the early warning system in the community? That piqued my interest because unfortunately when you grow up in the material world, you get conditioning and you learn to not respond to warnings, and so warnings of danger, they're like indications of safety. So can you say more on how that relates to the spiritual community?
Sure. And also, if people need to go for breakfast, it's fine, don't worry. Yes, so this is why we need to practice in community. Because in the community, Krishna will send people to tell us certain things. But also, if we're introspective, which also happens naturally if we progress properly. See, if you progress properly, you'll practice devotional service in the mode of goodness, which makes you naturally introspective. And what that means is that, for example, you'll be aware of what's going on inside you. You'll be aware, I'm losing enthusiasm. Why? Maybe I've offended someone. Or you'll notice, my mind's more disturbed or splayed out. What's causing that? I need to focus a bit more. So you'll get some signs inside of you which you'll notice, and Krishna will also confirm that externally, because you'll ask. You'll speak to devotees, you'll be in association, Krishna will confirm things for you. So that's how we can know. And actually, the easiest thing is to just engage in some reflection on your spiritual life regularly. It can be as simple as asking yourself, how's my chanting going, right? How's my association with devotees going? How's it going with my association with my juniors, with my peers, with my seniors? How's that going, And get feedback from the devotees. I've seen in my own life, if you ask the devotees for feedback on things that you can improve on, Krishna will inspire them to tell you all kinds of amazing things. They'll be like, wow, I never thought about that, but that's so true, and that will really help me. So we should that's what it means by a community, using that association. Yeah? Okay. Maybe we'll take this last question, because I think we need to have breakfast. If we can pass the microphone back, and then we'll take the last question, but I want to see a question for you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the class. It was with so much profound clarity and inspiring to me. Thank you for sharing about Vaishnava dealings. One question I have on this, I've asked multiple times, but I want to understand from you. You have said that, when we serve devotees, we should not look at the negative side or any fault from any devotee. Say, for example, the fault, if somebody is gossiping, don't carry along. You should, that way you had mentioned. But look at what Krishna's statement is and follow to that, right? On a day-to-day regular living, suppose say we keep thinking, how do we bring Krishna more into our life? How do we keep Krishna in our center? Say for example, just to make the question sharper, if I'm preparing boga, it's not for Jiva, but it is for Krishna. How do we understand that this boga I'm preparing is for Krishna? Should we take guidance or ask somebody, okay, this is what Krishna likes, or we should just think, okay, change our mood that, okay, this is what Krishna will say, or Bhagavad Gita sometimes will not have day-to-day answers for all these things, right? So how do we go about it? I just want to understand better.
Yeah, it's in essence, it's very simple. Bhavagrahi Janardana, Krishna accepts the essence of a devotee's service. The principle is we're trying to please Krishna. What will happen in our life as devotees is over time, as we learn more, we'll have more understanding of how to please Krishna. So we understand we should chant. As we learn more, we understand we should chant attentively. When we come, we understand we should offer food to Krishna. As we learn more, we understand this is how you offer the food, offer the bhoga. So Prabhupada says you preach according to your realization. Now, I've not read that he said this, but implicit, it also means you practice according to your realization as well. You see? You preach according to your realization, you practice according to your realizations. As you understand more, your practice will also improve. So anything you're not sure about, you just ask in the association of devotees. But don't worry too much, right? There's no hard and fast rules in some areas, like Lord Chaitanya does say that. There are hard and fast rules at the same time. But the point is that the essence is you just try to live a life where you offer your food, so it's vegetarian, you offer it to Krishna, no onions and garlic, like that, you know? You offer it the right prayers, he accepts it because he knows where your level is. He knows how sincere you're trying. He knows what you understand. So he will also help you by sending others to you to help you to upgrade your Krishna consciousness. So it's not expected. There's a letter by Prabhupada. He says that it's not expected that everyone comes to the highest standard straight away. It's a journey, you know. But what is desired and what Krishna does reciprocate with is that you have a sincere desire to progress. So behind everything is your intention. You know, I really want to progress, but the intention, if it's sincere, means I will come to the temple. If the intention is sincere, it means I will read the books. If the intention is sincere, it means that when I'm not sure about something, I will ask a devotee. You see? So it's the intention that empowers everything else. Yeah? So don't worry too much about that. Just being sincere, which I'm sure you are. Come to the temple. Read the books, because Prabhupada has invested so much in these books that they explain everything. There'll be books on the basics of Krishna consciousness, how to set up an altar in your house if you want, how to offer food to the deities. You know, like Gaura-Nitai, for example, you just chant to them, they'll be satisfied. Gaura-Nitai deities. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. But the main thing is that if you have association with devotees who you build relationship with and who can guide you like a mentor, senior devotee, Mataji, whatever, if you have that association, then through those channels, and you have more than one, by the way, through those channels, everything else that you need to progress will come. Okay? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll stop there. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Janitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.